how war is a manifestation of anti-individualism. And here's the thing. I think people don't understand when I say war, because what war? No, what war are you worried about going to? No one's going to draft you in the Western world. But it's not that. You can, anytime you have groups that are fighting, that is the reduction of the importance of the individual. And you can see that in something as casual, if you will, as protests and rioting. When people gather in mass for a larger goal, whether or not that goal is valid, it is a lowering of the importance of the individual. Sometimes that is useful. Sometimes it is not. And it's very important to understand that you give something up when you lift up the group. And it can be useful and it can be not useful. It can be destructive. And I think this is a particularly relevant thing when it's so weird. Like, protesting now is becoming such a casual thing. I was looking at something the other day. I was like through some stupid social media videos. And it was like some like child celebrity being like, yeah, I'm going to the protest later. I'll let you guys know where it is. It's like, what is this? What is this? Of course, because it's become super easy to organize protests. It's just posted on social media and everybody gathers together. It's never been easier to organize groups. And social media is a collectivist medium. That's it, full stop. The way that it works, until they invent something different, right now, social media is has a collectivist culture to it by design. And so I think there's something people don't understand. You don't go into a group and attempt to obtain a group's goal while maintaining your own individuality perfectly intact. You do not. And you can see that anytime a protest gets a little shaky, anytime a large group of people starts to get a little disorganized or a little chaotic, or certain elements of that group start to push it in one way or another, and you can feel that, I don't actually want to go this way with the group. Well, it doesn't fucking matter. You're going unless you get out of there. Like, if you're in a protest and it starts to get rowdy or violent or whatever, or chaotic, that's a bad scene. When your goals no longer align with the group that you've already given up some of your individuality to be in, that's a very it's a jarring sensation. And so, you have that, like, especially when I see some figures advocate things like violent protest or destruction or looting. I think that's the ultimate example of how you can have even something as small, or not a war, just a protest, some type of riot or whatever, and you can see that it is still requires a diminishing of the individual, because no one that cares about you as an individual would tell you to put yourself in a place of danger for a larger goal that is not, something you need, that you have no other option without. It's one thing if it's like, we're going to starve if you don't go and loot the Target or whatever. That's different. You've left no option. But you have to measure that. Is it worth me risking myself as an individual for this greater goal? Maybe. Sure, there's plenty of times when that's probably very true. But I think we don't have a very good understanding of what that is anymore. I think people are really disconnected from the cost of entering into a true group, because we've always been in an individualist culture, and now suddenly we're having this influx of collectivist influence and ethos that people are, it's very attractive because it's what we've always done. I mean, human beings have almost always been collectivists. Whether it's in tribes or in larger groups that were ruled by a minority and you were the peasantry, for the most part, human beings have organized themselves in groups, not with a strong bent towards the individual. That's a recent invention. So it's very easy to slip back into collectivism. And I think battle and like kind of this tribalism that's even the tribalism that's coming up through social media and political culture in the country. It is a reduction of your individuality. You have to understand that. That's the cost. That's the cost of group admittance, is individuality. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not a cost worth paying. That's my thing.
I reject it.
Really?
I just reject collectivism. Or
well, come on, you need to say that. You sound like you reject me.
No. Well, I don't feel that. You said something like we all feel good about being in a group or something like that. That's just not the way I feel.
Well, we're different like that. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. We're very outliers. That's why we're doing the podcast, because we've always been, I mean, we wouldn't be saying shit like we say on here, you know, Jaws is Jaws is BLM or whatever the fuck that I said that's going to get me canceled 50 times a day from now on. You know, you don't, I think we're really underestimating how much social media is stoking collectivism in the culture. Because it was Marshall McLuhan that said, before the internet existed, that there would be an internet and that it would be collectivist. He called it the global village. And if you know what a village is like, it's not a place full of individuals. It is a collectivist group. And any individual that poses a threat to the sustaining of the group is neutralized. I mean, no one cares about what you want. That's the whole thing. I don't know. Hopefully we don't have to learn the hard way that individualism is actually an invention and not the natural state of being. Because, I mean, even that we get to live the way we do, you know, away from society and beholden to our own beliefs and deciding our own lifestyle and all that, that's only because no one else has forced us to obey what they think is the way, you know? You don't get to be as much of an individualist in a country with an authoritarian rule. You conform to what the government decides is the model for people.
Yep. I just don't. I don't even use or humor these ideas. I mean, how should I say?
I don't toy with these ideas.
I don't. I just it's just against my nature to feel sucked into any sort of big movement. I can't even agree with people I like. I can't. You know. That's just. It's just. This is my nature. I'm contrarian, and I'm averse to large gatherings, and by large I mean more than like 2-3 people. I remember being a physical manifestation of this, though. I was in Eastern Europe, and there was an Independence Day for the country I was in, and I went onto the street. And the streets were packed so much with human beings that it was packed so much with human beings. And I'm a relatively burly person. I'm not small. And I was there, and there was this moment. There was just this moment. I'll never forget it, the sensation of it. This was probably dangerous, the amount of people. Yeah. They weren't really keeping the crowd control in check. I was just barely... It's hard to explain this. It's almost like the waves of the sea, how you don't know how strong they are until they hit you sometimes. Yeah. And I was packed so tightly, and I felt this tremor move through the crowd, that the force of it was the force of like thousands of bodies moving through a crowd and like kind of moving through me. And I felt how you could be smushed in a crowd, like if it went the wrong way. And I like almost panicked for a second. Yeah. And look, I panic about a lot of things, and parties like bother me and all that. But I'm being serious. Like anyone would feel this way, I think. There was this weird feeling, and I kind of noticed it around the crowd itself. It wasn't bad. It wasn't like there was a stampede or anything. But somehow at an intersection, things got kind of pushed together too much, and Anyway, it was a very physical manifestation of this feeling of being amongst a herd of people, and I don't
Yeah,
like it.
that's a great example to make it a more physical representation of the idea that you lose some individual autonomy when you enter into a group. I mean, that's very literally what it is that when you're embedded enough in a large group like that, you even lose the ability to move very freely. And you get subjected to whatever direction the crowd starts moving. It's a really, it's scary and panic inducing because you suddenly realize you aren't entirely free. And I'm talking about exactly your example. I'm not talking about some philosophical thing. I'm talking about what it feels like to be kind of smushed in a crowd and to know that you can't just leave. Because even in that situation, you have to kind of shuffle out, and it's like, it's not just like, okay, I'm just getting out of here. You can't just run and push everybody out of the way because then you're in another problem. Then the crowd turns on you. It's like, what's this guy that's causing all this problem? And that becomes a new thing. And you can't trample people either because as you start running, all of a sudden you panic one person, then they start running, they think something's wrong. Then you create a stampede and people actually get trampled. I mean, it's
Well,
like,
yeah, I mean that's true. But this was a situation. I wonder how dangerous it was, really, because you say you can't
I mean,
run.
think about Black Friday. People get trampled just trying to get into a store.
That's what I was going to say, though. This was different. There was no way to run. There was physically no way for me to put a foot in front to even begin to walk. That's what I'm saying. It was a very bizarre. I was kind of like almost.
How did you get out?
No one, because no one was panicking, and no one panicked. There was no reason for panic. It was. That's what I'm trying to say. It was like this weird wave of an ocean or something that through a packed crowd weird. Where these streets were intersecting, and then you could see it around you that people noticed this wasn't great. But nobody freaked out or anything. And slowly, as I approached the intersection or something, I don't know the exact geography of it. It kind of released. Like people get a little bit more room. I assume as people were able to maybe make a choice between which way they were going to go up at this intersection. I don't know why it happened that way, but I mean, this is something that happened 15 years ago, and I still I can physically remember it because weird. It's a weird feeling to feel a force greater than your own acting on your body, and luckily not harming you. But I mean, it was.
Well, it reminds me of also another collectivist element in war is that when war is organized, the whole premise behind a lot of the training is just to get people to give up their individuality and to move cohesively as a group. And that's also a sense of some of the pleasure that soldiers get from war, like that marching, the whole marching perfectly in unison, perfectly coordinated with a large group of people. I've heard that described as kind of almost having its own awe-inspiring feeling to it, because suddenly the individual, and this is the beauty of collectivism, there is it's not just one is good and one is bad or whatever, but there's that sense that
it is. I'm against it.
I mean,
what to say about this.
I'm not a fan. I know, like, I get it. I get it that there's also things that collectivism can do well. I just let y'all do it over there. Go do the collectivist things over there.
It's the worst thing in the world.
Anyone.
I'll just make claims all night and day. I don't care. Here's the thing. Like, if you watch those like synchronized dancing from North Korea and stuff like that, if weird. You look at that and like, it's dehumanizing. It's dehumanizing. It's weird. It's okay. It's like, it's a fascinating.
It's on purpose.
So I understand that, and I'm against it.
Because it's like, it's not about the individual human. It's about how the human is a part of a whole, which is, of course, like, look, I don't like that at all. I find that very unnerving because it means you're dispensable. If it's not your individual traits that make you important to whatever you're performing in, then you can be replaced by any other body. that functions in the same ways yours does.
But I'm
And-
against it for a different reason, which is that there's usually only so much. I'm against it for that reason also, but there's only so much harm that one person can usually do. And granted, they can do a lot of harm. But if you think about it, it's when people get into groups and bands and larger groups, then they can really cause a lot of harm. So I'm against it on this kind of overall level of, there's only, most individuals are relatively harmless, even if they're ill-intentioned or bad or whatever. But you take a group, and the group can be perfectly convinced of its righteousness, and the group could even be correct in some ways about being right. There's still now the potential for terror and violence now has just exponentially risen